Welcome to the Working Mumma podcast, a show that provides real-world tips, tricks, and advice to all working mamas on how they can have a career, family, and hopefully one day break the glass ceiling. Well, hey there, mama. Welcome back to another episode of the Working Mumma podcast. If you are a regular listener, you may have noticed that unfortunately I hadn't released a podcast episode in over a month. Yes, this is the longest break that I've had since I started this podcast way back in January 2020. Oh my goodness, feels like a lifetime ago. And I think I've done like 79 episodes in the meantime. But I am committed to this podcast because I love the medium of podcasting. And today I just wanted to jump on and share with you about what's been happening behind the scenes, my experiences, and also a few lessons that I've learnt along the way. I want to say that, yes, I did drop the ball. And I also want to get out of this episode that knowing that it's okay to, not actually carry all the balls at any one time. And sometimes it's actually not possible. So that's why I want to share with you my journey over the last probably 2 months and be fully transparent with you and also let you know that you're not alone. If you're feeling at the moment, oh my goodness, how can I do this? Is it all worth it? Am I able to be a mum and have a career and things like that? I actually want you to take out of this episode that yes, you can. Yes, you can. And it may mean that there's going to be some priorities at some points that may be work focused. Others are going to be probably more family focused. But I definitely want you to know that you can be a mum and also have a career. So, a bit of backstory. Many of you, if you followed me on Instagram particularly and also connected with me on LinkedIn, know that I have a part-time corporate gig for a large multinational, and as well I do Working Mumma. So pretty much probably between the both, I actually work full-time, but I only do my corporate gig 3 days a week. And then yes, my other non-paid time is spent with my children and also doing Working Mumma, which I am very, very passionate about. And I would love that actually one day to be my full-time gig. In my corporate role, I recently took on an acting Asia Pacific role, and with this also took on extra responsibilities. And I also was managing a big project from across the region that resulted in a large show happening in Berlin in September. I have to say it was definitely all-consuming, and I really didn't like in myself that the lines between work, life, and working mama and family and even my holidays had really blurred the boundaries that I had set myself. And I, for a very long time, have been very clear on what those boundaries were. And I even got annoyed that I was on holidays at one point and I was still answering emails and doing work, which I can't say my husband was too happy about, but I really didn't enjoy it. And I wasn't happy in myself because I knew what my boundaries were and I was blurring those. I then set myself the mental target of the end of September to get things back on track. And I have to say that it was all mental of what I was telling myself and the way that I was working. And our mindset has a huge amount of impact on the way that we not only the stories that we tell ourselves, but also the way that we also perceive ourselves. Yes, the project was a huge success, but upon reflection, was it worth all the extra hours and time away from what is my real passion? And also on my non-paid working days, you can't see me actually recording this, but I'm putting in inverted commas, away from, with my kids and things like that. Probably not actually in hindsight. I started doing this acting role and my husband said to me, you're not going to get much out of this, sort of thanks and things like that. Sadly, he was right. And I don't do things, to get a lot of kudos and that. I really love my work to speak for, volumes about me and who I am and what I stand for. But I have to say, I got very little acknowledgement for those extra hours, the extra time that I was definitely not supposed to be working and I was doing it. And, sometimes as well, it doesn't actually take much for someone to say, even just a personal one-on-one email, Thank you very much for your contribution. Greatly appreciated. Did I receive that? No. I got an acknowledgement as part of a larger group email once a new person had started. So for me, it's been a bit bittersweet. I have to say I did enjoy the experience of working with individuals that I hadn't worked before. But I have to say the workload was certainly high, much higher than I was probably expecting. And as I said, this really blurred the boundaries. It then had an impact on, as I said, my family life. I was probably at times a bit shorter with my kids. I was definitely operating off a lot less sleep. And so and unfortunately, I realized that between, my family, I was also doing Working Mumma and with other parts, then also my cook rig, I unfortunately couldn't produce the podcast. And I don't want to give you crap to listen to. Instead, I actually want quality over quantity. And so that's why I decided that there was a ball that had to be dropped. And for me, unfortunately, it was the podcast. But as I said, I am committed to this. And that's why I just wanted to share with you this episode to say, I had to unfortunately drop a ball. I didn't like doing it, and it was in the back of my mind, for the last month of what's this episode going to look like? How am I going to, share this? And also what content is going forward. I did do a poll recently on Instagram about what content people are interested in, and definitely this has given me some direction going forward. From my experiences, I have to say I'm now focused on resetting my boundaries, and more on that again soon. What I've learned from this as well is that I know that I can't do absolutely everything, both physically, mentally, and emotionally. As mums, we're led to believe that we could and should, and some of those patriarchal systems, but it's not often possible. We sometimes think, yes, we'll take it all on, and we keep saying yes, when sometimes we probably should actually say no. Look, it's going to have to wait. And look, from my corporate gig perspective, there were a couple of people who were asking me, when's this going to be done by? And I said, realistically, not till mid to late October, because I just knew that I didn't have the capacity. And actually felt quite empowering to not only reset their expectations, but also to push back a little bit. Sometimes it's just people put so much on you, but you also need to, at times when, realistically push back and actually say, look, sorry, I can't do it. And sometimes if you're actually given those examples about why not, people are actually pretty understanding. As I said, going through this process, I knew that something needed to pause when I was just working ridiculous hours, feeling so stressed and really stretched in all different ways. And as I said, for me, that was the podcast. And, each episode probably takes on average about 4 to 5 hours to put out to, from end to end. And I just want to say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I haven't released an episode, but I hope going forward that I'm able to make that up to you. And, that you can go back and listen to others if there's a particular topic, and always love to get feedback from you on topics that you think might be of interest, what works, what doesn't work. I'm always really wanting to improve this. As I said, I wanted to share with you the insights with you because, I want to let you know that it is challenging being a working mum. I'm just going to put it out there. Yes, I have my challenges. There's some days, even this week, I'm going, oh my goodness. But you know what I've realized is the one thing that I think actually makes the biggest difference. And for me, that's actually been my mindset. This week, I am actively resetting my mindset. And I'm going through a process of, well, what's most important to me? What are my values? And also, what are my non-negotiables? For me, I had a relatively senior position for quite a while, and I have also seen other very senior men, particularly men, they've either lost partners, have had major health issues, they've had cancer, strokes, all thanks to the stress of their roles. And I think that's also them not looking after sometimes their health, but also they've given so much to their organisations. And also I'm sitting back going, well, when I didn't get a whole lot of, pretty much any acknowledgement for the extra work that I've done, particularly only, working 3 3 days a week. As I said, I don't do work for the kudos and wow, I don't want to rah-rah or anything. But sometimes, even if you're just a leader, just a simple thanks is all it takes. That's just the simple things for me are the big things. And and so that's why I was like, you know what? Is it really worth it? And so that's why now I'm going, you know what? I need to reset. I need to work out again what my priorities are. Yes, I still probably go 110, 120% at work, but I've actually scaled it back from probably the 200%. I also reflected, even last week it happened, that I was quite short with my kids. I was on my non-working day. I was still working. I was actually in my study. Both of my kids were just into literally every drawer, everything. And one of them did something and I was like, I actually can't get mad at him for doing that because it's my own fault, because I'm distracted by my work and I'm trying to still, be present for my kids, and it didn't work. And so that's why now it's about resetting and reframing those brand boundaries. I went on a trip, part of the end of this project, I went on a trip to Germany and I had 8 days to, 8 nights away, which that could almost be a whole other episode in itself. But just quickly, because I know a number of people have asked me, the trip was a success. It was very busy. Yes, I did get a little bit of time to myself, probably about a day and a half. I spent half a day shopping because it's much cheaper to shop in Europe than Australia. And also then spent about a day or, a couple of hours walking around Berlin. It was going to be a short walk, and then 12 kilometers later, I then get home. I was my 4th time in Berlin, so I didn't need to do all the touristy things, but it was really good to see the architecture and be around. And then from Monday morning, it was game on, really, really busy, and yeah, it was hectic. But I have to say, I also went outside my comfort zone in terms of networking, and I hadn't networked really in 3 years. And so then again, that was a bit of a confidence boost. But overall, really good and successful trip. So, all the hard work and those extra hours, yes, did pay off, and it was worth it. But, I definitely won't be doing it on a part-time role again. But there's also someone doing an Asia Pac role now, which is good. But that plane trip home also gave me some good time for reflection, and also to really identify what I need to improve, because I knew it was not sustainable for the work that I was doing. So now I just want to share with you 3 lessons and key takeaways that I've got from when I've dropped a ball. And then we say drop the ball, meaning it's actually a bad thing. For me, it was probably just putting the ball on the ground, letting it sit there, being the podcast, until I was ready to pick it up again. And that's really this episode. So the first one is about boundaries. And boundaries are so, so important, I think, as a working mum, particularly as a part-time working mum. And we really need to be clear on what they are, why we have them, and also not only clear in our own mindset and our own heads, but also with those people around us, particularly from a work perspective, also even our partner. And being clear on those boundaries is really important. It also really helps set those, the integration between work and life. And so I think as I said, I'm about really actively resetting my boundaries at the moment of like, right, okay, this is work time and I don't want to really commit too much on my days off. And so this can include about setting my out of office messages where I hadn't had them on, but then in hindsight, I probably should have. And for me, look, in all honesty, it was probably about managing some people's perceptions of me, and that's why I didn't turn it on. But in hindsight, yes, I need to turn those out of office messages back on to again reset those boundaries and also the expectations for people around me. Email footers. Unfortunately, some of these don't necessarily always work. And also about being, conscious about when you're turning on your work email and checking it. And also then about being present with your children and those around you on your days off, rather than actually, oh no, is that the phone? Is that a message come through? And things like that. The next one, number 2, is about saying no and also having the confidence to do this. The hardest time to say no and to push back is the first time. It's a bit like the confidence muscle. The more that you do it, the more you're going to get more comfortable with it. And there are ways to actually say no. It's not going to be necessarily an outright no, but it could be about resetting it and saying, look, it's not going to be done today. It might be done next week, next month, I just have to push back because I've got this major project on, or I've just don't have the capacity at the moment. Also helps people go, oh, wow, she must be really busy. And it can often be hard, but no, as I said, it can also be quite a bit of a confidence boost, and also just that mental aspect of it as well. And, some things can wait. And also be sure about your abilities, and know that you're going to be okay, that you're definitely marketable from a role, and that if you push back, because many other people do it as well. We just sometimes, I think, feel that, if you're part-time, oh no, if I say no, someone else is going to do it, and then people are going to get mad at me, or, question if I should be 3 times and part-time. And there's all the things. I'm just probably sharing you a little bit of my head about what goes on, but it's actually the stories that we're telling ourselves. And as I say, it's our mindset has such a big part of it. And that is really then leads me to the third learning and lesson that I really got out of this, is that mindset is so critical. The stories that we're telling ourselves, the beliefs that we're telling ourselves is often in our heads, and it's not always shared, and most commonly not shared by the people around us. So as I said, often the work hours that I was doing, it was actually through my own work ethic and my own mindset of what I thought was required. Did I need to probably go through the nth detail and degree and things like that of what I was doing? Probably not. But it was one of those things. It was my mindset that was telling me I've got to do this, and I wanted it to be perfect. But I think sometimes as well, and even this day and age of just there's so much going on, often it's the 80-20 rule. We can't necessarily always have everything perfect. But, if getting it near enough is good enough, and, there's a lot everyone's managing. So it's also about resetting those expectations. And I also, from a mental perspective, I was telling myself that it was okay. Yes, I'll be able to do it until this particular date. And that was what I'd set myself. And so when it started encroaching after the end of September, I was like, whoa, this isn't good. This is not what I'd told myself. And so now this week, I'm consciously rewiring my mindset to say, no, these are my boundaries. This is what I'm clear on. And look, yes, it did take me this week apologizing to my son, my eldest son, of that. She's saying, sorry, mate, mum was working, and I'm really sorry that I didn't spend time with you. And then he came up to me. We were outside gardening. He came up to me and said, it's okay, Mummy, I understand. And he goes, I'm sorry I got angry at you wanting to come and play and do gardening with me. And I almost cried and he's giving me the big hug as he's doing this. And I thought, he's this 4-year-old, shouldn't have to deal with this. He's got his mum at home and he wants to play with me, and I'm there making sure this presentation's okay. And I thought, no, this isn't right. So that for me was that line in the sand that I'm like, no, I need to be clearer. I need to have my boundaries. I need to set my out of office. I also need to work on my mindset about, what's most important. And that's actually when I'm at home and being present with my kids. When I'm in work mode, I'm in work mode. When I'm in mum mode, I'm in mum mode. And I just can't do it. And so now my mindset and my outlook is consciously needing to change. And that's why I just want to share with you that, sometimes you're like, yes, can I do this? And I was even having a chat with one of the members of the Working Mumma Village yesterday as one of our powwows. We have 2 powwows a month, one during the day and one at night. And she was like, oh, how are we doing it? And I said, very similar to what I'm sharing with you now, is about some of these things. Is about mindset, about confidence to say no or push back, and setting those boundaries between work and life, and being, even those little things about out of office, they can actually make a really huge difference. So from these learnings, as a result, I'm now putting my out of office back on the days that I don't work. I'm going to be checking my emails less and only really respond to the urgent ones. I generally will probably check around lunchtime and, see if something's hit the fan or not. Otherwise, it can wait. And also, number 3, I'm focusing on being conscious with my time and also my health. My fitness, I know, is not where I like it to be. I love going for a run, and I haven't done it for a long time, partly because of winter, but also, and I got injured, but I need to get back into it because I know mentally I'm so much better when I'm fit and healthy and exercising. So out of today, I just wanted to share that with you. Apologies for not putting out a podcast for a while, But I just wanted to share with you 3 lessons and takeaways that I've learned from not dropping the ball, but putting the ball on the ground. And now I'm ready to pick up the podcast ball and connect and engage with you more. As always, if you've got anything to share, any feedback, any learnings, I'd love to hear from you. And if you could leave a rating or review on the Apple Podcast, that would be absolutely sensational. So as always, check out at Working Mumma Community on Instagram and LinkedIn. And as always, you're always welcome to join the Working Mumma Village. So have a great day, and I'll speak with you next time. Thank you for listening to the Working Mumma podcast. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or your favorite podcast catcher. I invite you also to join the Working Mumma community on Facebook and join in the conversation with other like-minded working mums. Please also feel free to contact me on any of the Working Mumma social channels. Remember, Mumma is MUMMA, or website www.workingmumma.com.au. I would appreciate you to share this podcast with friends and colleagues, especially those that are parents managing the juggle. And I would really appreciate if you had to take the time out to leave a review of the podcast. I'll be giving a shout out to select people that do so stay listening and you might be one of them. Thank you, and see you next time. Have a great week.